Good evening, hello and welcome. I'm Ankit and you are watching the Daily News Simplified of 10th of September. Now, as you can see in this slide, we are going to discuss five important articles which we have picked up from the newspapers Indian Express and The Hindu. Now, please make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel for all future updates. Now, moving on to the first article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Indian Express Explained section. Now, this article, if you're looking closely, it highlights that the Supreme Court has intervened in the Himachal Pradesh High Court's collegium decision. Now, this collegium, it is responsible for appointing members to the judiciary. Now, this collegium system governs appointment not just to the high courts of the country, but also to the apex court, that is Supreme Court of India. Now, structure, organization, and functioning of the judiciary is mentioned in the GS paper 2 syllabus. That is why we are discussing this very article from mains perspective because it is important from GS paper 2 syllabus. Also, questions on this very topic has been asked before. As you can see here in 2017, a question appeared on Supreme Court's judgment on National Judicial Appointment Commission. What was this NJAC? We'll see in the next slide. Now, this collegium system of appointment to the members of higher judiciary it is an evolved process because as you can see from this slide, I have put snapshots which of the Constitution of India, which highlights the procedure of appointment to the members of Supreme Court and High Courts respectively. Now, as you can see from this very screenshot, under Article 124, subsection 2, this Constitution highlights that every judge of the Supreme Court shall be appointed by the President by warrant under his hand and seal after consultation with such judges of Supreme Court and that of High Courts. Similarly, in the Article 217 of the Constitution, also you can see that every judge of the High Court shall be appointed again by the President under the warrant of his hand and seal only after consultation with Chief Justice of India, Governor of the state, and in case of appointing other than judges of Chief Justice of High Court, they also consult Chief Justice of respective High Court. So you can understand this process highlights that executive will make appointments to the judges after consultation with the members of judiciary. So before the year of 1980s, the primacy in appointing judges to the High Court and Supreme Court was with executive as they had upper hand as compared to that of judiciary. Now, this process you can understand was again misused by the executive or the government of the day because Mrs. Indira Gandhi, when she was Prime Minister, she appointed a person as Chief Justice of Supreme Court and she overlooked the seniority of that person because that person, from what I understand, was third or fourth in matter of seniority. And he was made Chief Justice by surpassing his senior colleagues as well. So, because of this controversy that executive was misusing their power in appointments to the Supreme Court and High Court, the Supreme Court evolved a system called collegium system. However, this evolution was not a straightforward evolution because it took a sum total of three cases, which is otherwise known as three judges case, for the collegium system to come to fruition. Now, the first case in this regard was SP Gupta versus Union of India case, the judgment of which was delivered in the year 1981. Now, as you can understand, the constitution itself highlights the word consultation. So, the controversy was over what does this word consultation mean? Is it just merely asking the judges on what they want to appoint, or is it a comprehensive consultation? So, in this regard, the first judgment, that is the first judge's case or the SP Gupta versus Union of India case, In this judgment, the Supreme Court highlighted that the view of Chief Justice of India was non-determinative. Although the executive was required to take consultation of the judiciary, but it was not concurrent on the, or it was not binding on the executive. Hence, consultation by the Supreme Court judgment in this case meant that it did not mean concurrence. Hence, even this judgment restored or maintained the executive primacy in the appointments of the judges. However, this thing changed with the second judge's case, otherwise known as Supreme Court's Advocate on Records Association versus Union of India case, the judgment of which came out in the year 1993. Now, under this judgment, the Supreme Court highlighted that this word consultation, it meant concurrence. That the executive will not just mere ask judiciary for their opinion for the namesake. Rather, that opinion which is given by the judiciary is real, substantive, and effective. Hence, the executive is binding by the opinion which is given by judiciary. Hence, in that way, you can say, in this regard, the consultation with judiciary meant concurrence of judiciary. So, you can say, by this particular judgment, the primacy of Chief Justice of India was restored in the matters of both appointment to the members of judiciary and also the transfers of judges from one high court to the other. However, in this judgment, it was also held by the Supreme Court that the concurrence of judiciary did not mean just the concurrence of Chief Justice of India. Rather, the opinion of Chief Justice will only be formed after consulting two other senior judges of the Supreme Court. That is why, in this regard, the size of the collegium after the second judge's case was one, that is Chief Justice of India, plus two senior most judges. Now, there was this third case which was made or heard after the reference was made by the President of India, and this case was called Special Reference 1, and this was given in the year 1998. Now, under this judgment, the Supreme Court, in writing, highlighted or started giving the concurrence of the word collegium, and it unanimously clarified that the collegium system will solely be responsible for appointment of the members to both Supreme Court as well as other high courts in the country. However, under this judgment, the Supreme Court enlarged the constitution or the composition of collegium, and in appointing of judges of Supreme Court was concerned, the Supreme Court highlighted that here the Chief Justice of India should also consult four senior most members of the Supreme Court, and whereas the appointment of members to High Court is concerned, here the Chief Justice of India will consult two senior most judges from Supreme Court. This highlights the collegium of Supreme Court, and this collegium of Supreme Court will then consult the collegium of High Courts, which consist of Chief Justice of High Court and two senior most judges of that particular High Court. So this was how this collegium system has evolved over a period of time. Also, in the third judgment, the Supreme Court highlighted that the members of the High Court will only be appointed after consultation of these two collegiums, in addition to consulting the Supreme Court judges who hail from particular high court in the state. Now, this collegium system has existed since the year 1998. However, in the year 2014, the then government tried to change this system by involving the executive also in the process of appointment to the High Court and Supreme Court. And this was done through 99th Amendment Act of the Constitution, which constituted a National Judicial Appointment Commission. Now, this commission will be responsible for both transfers and appointment to the members of judiciary, and it will consist three members of the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice of India, and three members who are representatives of the government, which includes law minister as well as two eminent persons. However, the Supreme Court, in its 2015 judgment, it invalidated this particular amendment which was made by highlighting that this very amendment went against the very basic structure of the constitution, that was independence of judiciary. Hence, according to Supreme Court, this 99th Amendment Act was struck down. Therefore, the current system of appointment of the members of judiciary is what existed in the year 1998, that is the collegium system. However, this collegium system faces too many challenges even at particular day, which we'll discuss it in this particular slide. Now, there are two kinds of challenges. First are conceptual challenges, and another set of challenges can be called as practical challenges. So, let us understand first what are the conceptual challenges with respect to collegium system of appointment of the members of judiciary. Now, the first challenge is called judges appointing judges. Now, you must have heard in your polity classes, there's a thing called separation of powers, where three organs of the state, that is legislature, executive, and judiciary, are meant to be separated from one another. However, Constitution of India also provides for a thing called checks and balances, which means any step taken by one of the organ of the state will be checked by another organ of the state. So in this regard, you can understand members of the executive, they are appointed from the legislature itself. An executive then are also responsible for legislature also. That is why you can say legislature, it checks and balances the executive in our country. Also, the decisions passed by both these organs, that is legislature and executive, are also checked and balanced by the judiciary of India through a process called a judicial review. Because any unconstitutional or illegal decision which is taken by these two organs can be invalidated by the judiciary. Hence, you can also say that these both legislature and executive, they are accountable to judiciary also. However, in process of judges who are appointing judges through a thing called collegium system, there is no thing called checks and balances by other organs of the state. And this is where the problem arises with the collegium system, that the process involves only the judges of the country, and their word is final in case of appointment and transfers, and legislature and executive of our country cannot do one thing against the wishes of the judiciary. Also, the process of deliberation by the collegium system also lacks transparency, because you can understand, sorry, because you can understand this process of deliberation by collegium system, it takes place behind closed doors, and any decision that they take with matters related to appointments or transfers, they are not justified in public. So the public in general do not know why a certain member has been appointed to High Court or the Supreme Court, or why a certain judge has been transferred from one Supreme Court to another. Also, in matters related to proceedings of the collegium system, they are also not made public. That is why it has been alleged that the matters of collegium, they lack transparency as far as public disclosure is concerned. Also, I highlighted that the process involving judges who are selecting judges, it also highlights there is an absence of accountability in the system. Because in case of any misdemeanor or wrongdoing which is done by a Supreme Court or High Court judge, the only recourse of action that the other bodies have is to undertake what is called a process of impeachment. Now, the process of impeachment in India is a long drawn and political process which requires a special majority in the House to remove a particular judge, which you can understand in current political circumstances is a difficult situation. So that is why, in case any judge is involved in wrongdoing or misdemeanor, they cannot be punished by legislature and executive in a simple manner. And this highlights the lack of accountability of judiciary towards other organs of the state. Now, these were conceptual problems with relation to the collegium system. Now, take a look with practical problems of the collegium system. Now you can understand the process of judges appointing judges. It is a long drawn process in which the Supreme Court sorts data from High Courts, and after High Court has recommended a certain judge to be appointed to Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court verifies it with the government through intelligence report. So this long drawn process, it results into delay in appointment to the members of judiciary, because in the year 2023, as many as 37% of the posts in country's high court, they remained vacant. And this was not just the case in the year 2023 only. As you can see from this graph, the vacancies after the invalidation of National Judicial Appointment Commission here in 2015, this vacancy of judges has remained over and above 36% in general, which means roughly one third of the seats in the high courts, they remain vacant. And this is why you can understand there is so long pendency in the high courts and Supreme Court of the country, because the high court and Supreme Court, they function only based on two-thirds of their designated capacity. Also, there has been a severe allegation that this process of collegium system is a closed drawn process which favors what is called as a process of nepotism, or otherwise called as a uncle judge syndrome. And why am I saying this, that this process favors nepotism? Which you can see even today, many judges, they are close relative and acquaintances of other judges and advocates. So, because this process is a closed door process, it obviates or it prevents outsiders from becoming judges and advocates in the high courts of the country. That is why you can say that this uncle judge syndrome promotes nepotism, and it also goes against the very basic idea of promoting merit, because under the collegium system, the preference is given to seniority rather than given to merit. That is why these are the set of challenges, both conceptual challenges as well as practical challenges with the collegium system that exists currently. Now, let us look at how to make this collegium system more transparent in order to streamline the process of judicial appointments in the country. Now, the first suggestion in this regard is to have a transparent appointment process. Now, in this regard, Ministry of Law and Justice, it gave a significant suggestion some time back, that is appointing a search and evaluation committee. Now, this search and evaluation committee will consider the names of judges, and then it will recommend a certain list of names to the collegium system, based on which the collegium system will pick judges. That is why this process will not just involve executive, but it will also ensure accountability and acceptability of candidates who are appointed to higher judiciary. Also, there is a need to have a objective criteria as well, because the judges who are appointed should be both meritorious as well as suitable to be appointed as a member of higher judiciary, and this objective criteria needs to be made public, so that the public also understand what are the criteria based on which the collegium system is selecting or appointing judges. Also, there is a need to make information related to the both appointment process and the reasons why certain judges are being appointed or transferred, and why certain judges or candidates are not being appointed to judiciary. Hence, by increasing the information disclosure, we will reduce the amount of secrecy which surrounds this process, but will also make the process more and more acceptable to the public in nature. Also, there's a need to involve other branches of the government in the process of judicial appointments. And in this regard, we can also follow the model which is followed by the United States of America. Now, in United States of America, the members or the judges of Supreme Court, they are recommended by the executive, that is the President of the United States. And the recommendation of the president, it is then vetted and approved by the legislature, that is US Senate of US. So you can understand the process of appointing judges in US. it not just involves executive, but it also involves concurrence and assent of the legislature of United States. And this model can also be adopted in order to involve the other branches, that is executive, as well as legislature, in the process of judicial appointments. Further, the deliberations which are made by the collegium system, they can also be made public by publishing the audio as well as video recordings of the collegium proceedings in the public, which will again make the process more and more transparent and less secretive. So these were the total arguments that I could give in the first article of the day. And with this, we move to the second article of the day, which also appeared in the op-ed section of the Indian Express. Now, this article highlights the achievements of Swachh Bharat mission, which was started in the year 2014. Now, this mission aimed to educate people about the benefits of sanitation or clean sanitation. And this mission made a point to educate as many as 55 crore people on the need of adopting clean sanitation practices. Also, this program envisaged construction of more than 10 crore toilets across the country. Now, the total this scheme or the Swachh Bharat mission was divided into two different segments, that is Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin and Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. Now, this Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin came under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Jal Shakti, whereas this Swachh Bharat Mission came under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now, both of these schemes, they intended to make the country open defecation free by the year 2019, and also the scheme aimed at 100% scientific disposal of municipal solid waste. And after the targets was achieved in the year 2019, the scheme was further extended to make the country open defecation free plus, that is getting rid of not just open defecation, but also getting rid of the menace of people urinating out in the open. Also, there was this another target which was given to this scheme, that was making OTF plus plus, that is all the fecal and sewage matter that has been coming out of this particular mission can only be discharged in water bodies after they have been treated with effectively. That is why you can see the scheme has been quite effective in India in not just making people aware of the benefits of clean sanitation, but also in matters of construction of toilets across the country. Now, this news article, it is important from GS paper 2 syllabus because as you can see, the syllabus highlights government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and also the issues arising out of their design and implementation. Also, you can see questions have been asked on this topic in the year 2017. That is how hunger and poverty are still the biggest challenge for good governance in India. So you can see in future a similar question can be modeled on Swachh Bharat mission on how even today the matters related to clean sanitation is a biggest challenge for India even after the implementation of Swachh Bharat mission. Now, after we have done with the basics of this scheme that is here, let us now understand what are the key achievements and the outcomes of this scheme. Quite obviously, as I've already highlighted, this scheme was successful in eradicating the menace of open defecation because by the year of October 2019, India was declared by all the states to be open defecation free. And this was a significant achievement because before 2014, even basic matters such as accessing a washroom in your own residential premises was something to be unheard of in rural areas. So, in rural areas, there was this tendency among people that they used to defecate out in the open by force, that is forcibly, or even by willingness. However, you have to understand that this open defecation was not just a social problem. Rather, it was also leading to several health problems to women and children. Because then, women and children, when they are out defecating in the open, they were prone to many illnesses and malnutrition. Also, women, when they were going out, they were also subject to certain ridiculousness and social stigma, which again went against the very dignity of women. Hence, you can say this was the biggest achievement of the country in terms of eradicating this very menace, with not just made India clean, but also removed many or eliminated many health and social outcomes also. Also, as the news article even highlights, that because of this open defecation free, India has able to reduce the infant and child mortality by as much as 40,000 less deaths per year, which you can understand is a significant achievement in terms of reducing infant mortality ratios, also by reducing under 5 mortality rates in the country. Further, these studies have highlighted that because of improved health outcomes, people are less spending less on their healthcare expenses, and by the saving of as much as 50,000 rupees per year, it has led to several economic benefits to the people of India. Because rather than spending this much amount of money on healthcare services, which was due to out of defecating out in the open, people are rather spending this money on nutritional and other consumption spending, which not just promotes health of the people but also leads to growth of the Indian economy. Further, as I've already highlighted, reducing the menace of open defecation also enables women to preserve their dignity and well-being, because women, they were forced to out go in the open, and they were subjected to quite a lot of security issues. Also, women, rather than avoiding going out in broad daylight, they used to eat less, which again led to many other health problems such as malnutrition and underweight. So, because of all these achievements, India gained a global recognition, and even countries like Nigeria, they were able to replicate the success of India based on their Clean Nigeria campaign, which was again modeled on the outcomes and achievements of Swachh Bharat mission. Further, such achievements also contributes to India reaching their sustainable development goal targets, specifically target 6, which highlights clean water as well as sanitation. So these were the set of outcomes that have highlight not just India was able to eradicate the menace of open defecation, but it also led to several health and economic benefits, that is reduced infant and child mortality rates, increased income of households otherwise they have spent on healthcare services, and also preserving the social dignity and security of women, in addition to gaining both global recognition and achieving their sustainable development goals targets. However, even today there are several set of challenges which plagues the implementation of this very scheme, and in this regard let us understand what are the set of challenges. The first set of challenges is the need to ensure sustainability of ODF status. Because as you can, almost all of you must have seen the TV series Panchayat. And even in that series, it was seen that a Pradhanji of that particular show, who was a socially and economically influential person in that village, even out of habit, he used to go out defecate in the open. And this highlights the very problem that people, they are not ready to defecate out in the closed confines. Rather, out of habit, they are preferring to go outside. And in this regard, the main culprit has been inadequate monitoring and verification of ODF status, because as per the data which has been given in many news articles, only 14% of toilets have been subjected to second verification, whether or not people are using them or not. So, because of inadequate monitoring and verification, the sustainability of ODF status remains a challenge. Further, as you can understand, because the scheme was undertaken at such a large scale, the emphasis was rather given on achieving the quantity of toilets to be constructed, which was more than 10 crores in number, over the quality of those toilets. So, because of lack of maintenance or use of good materials in construction of those toilets, even today, most of the toilets which have been constructed, they are facing maintenance and sustainability issues. That is why when people they do not have good quality toilets or their toilets have malfunctioned, so rather they are going to defecate out in the open, which again highlights the need to ensure the sustainability of ODF status. Further, there are many cultural and social barriers also which prevent people from take, which rather encourages people from going out in the open to defecate. First is a cultural barrier because we understand women in rural areas they are confined to close quarters or inside their homes. So when they used to go out in the open areas to defecate, it provided them with the only opportunity to meet their fellow women. So this was the only opportunity for them to interact socially. That is why after removing or eliminating the process of open defecation, women rather want to go out in the open because they want to meet with their peers. Also, as you can understand, open defecation and manual scavenging, particularly in India, is a prohibited vocation. That Constitution of India prohibits people from being indulged or being forced into the process of manual scavenging. However, construction and maintenance and cleanliness of toilets which have been constructed requires people to clean them. And this has been a social barrier because in India, the historically responsible caste have been with the marginalized caste who have been responsible for undertaking manual scavenging. So, on one hand, the Constitution of India prohibits this manual scavenging activity. However, by construction of toilets, you are also promoting the people to manually scavenge the toilets. So, this is what the social barrier highlights that, first of all, the cleanliness of toilet historically has been the responsibility of one caste, which you are promoting rather by constructing toilets. So, you see my point. So these are the cultural and social barriers. Now, also you can understand construction of more than 10 crores toilets also generates a large amount of sewage. However, when you're not sufficiently treating this sewage, rather when these sewage are being dumped into water bodies, it creates many environmental problems also. And not just environmental problems, but if contaminated with drinking water, it can also create some kind of health problems also. So this is what insufficient sewage treatment can do to your goals. Because when you're not treating the sewage sufficiently, it can create environmental and health problems. Further, maintenance and cleanliness of toilets, they require adequate supply of piped water. However, in case of water scarcity in rural areas, people have been discouraged or rather not wanting to go to their unclean toilets to prevent their cleanliness and maintenance. So all these five challenges you can understand highlight only one thing that there is that although India has achieved the ODF status, however, maintaining or sustaining that ODF status remains a challenge because of these five issues. So in this regard, let us understand what are the ways in order to make this program that is Swachh Bharat Abhiyan more and more better. The first suggestion in this regard is to undertake behavior change and public awareness. Because most of the people, still even today, they do not see what is wrong with out defecating out in the open. Right? They understand it is a social problem, but rather they do not understand what are the health challenges related to this very issue. So in that case, the government can also undertake many of the IEC activities, which will make people aware of the challenges of defecating out in the open and will then also discourage them or will promote the process of going to their toilets which have been constructed under this. Also, there is an inherent need to expand the coverage, especially in the public spaces, because you have already constructed toilets in their private spaces and residential houses. But these public spaces, such as parks, bus stands, they still have or they still do not have the adequate sanitation infrastructure. So in this area, these are the areas, specifically the slums, which have the tendency to move out of the ODF sustainability. That is why we need to expand the coverage of toilets in these public spaces so as to give people the opportunity, even when they are in the public areas, to use clean and adequate sanitation facilities. And also, as we have highlighted here in the scheme, that insufficient sewage treatment and water scarcity remains a problem in implementation of this scheme. So, in this regard, integration with other schemes are also necessary because schemes such as Amrut or Smart Cities Mission, they aim to look to increase the capacity of local bodies in order to undertake projects which are related to sewage and municipal waste treatment. Also, missions such as Jal Jeevan Mission, they can also be utilized to provide people with tap water supply, which will also do away with the challenges related to water scarcity. So, integration with other schemes such as Amrut and Smart City schemes and Jal Jeevan Mission is essential for implementing the scheme in a better manner. Further, in order to expand the coverage of toilets, we can also look to explore public-private partnership. And in this regard, examples such as Shulabh Shauchalaya, which you can witness in metro cities in Delhi, they are a glaring example because an NGO or a civil society organization becomes responsible for construction, maintenance, and cleaning of toilet facilities, and they can only charge a minimum amount from the people who use those toilets. And this highlights that in areas where the governments have not been able to make effective progress, the public private partnerships can play a key role. Further, monitoring and maintenance of public toilets is also very essential in order to sustain the process of open defecation free certification. And also, in this regard, we need to involve community also because monitoring and maintenance of public toilets, the responsibility of which can be given to local people through the process called social audits, which you can see even happens in schemes such as Manrega. So in this process, the local people, they undertake social audit and they undertake what kind of monitoring and maintenance of these public toilets are taking place. Also, involving the community is quite essential in order to sustain the process of open defecation free because the community itself can play a key role in stigmatizing the process of defecating out in the open. Hence, the social pressure becomes crucial wherever the government pressure fails. So this is how we can extend incentives to civil society organizations and NGOs who undertake various efforts in this regard. So this was all for today's discussion with Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and we move to next set of articles. So with this, we move to next set of articles. The first of which appeared in the Hindu newspaper, that is text and context section. Now, this news article highlights that last week the Press Trust of India, it reported that the Indian Meteorological Department, it is planning to revive what is known as district agro-meteorological units, which was established in the year 2018. Now, as many as 199 DAMUs were established, and these DAMUs were responsible to provide weather data, which is utilized to give advisories to farmers in a country. Understand? Now, this news article becomes important from GS Paper 3 syllabus because the syllabus highlights technology missions which are aimed to enhance agricultural productivity and yield of the country. Further, a closely related question have been asked in the mains of the year 2021, which highlights present challenges before crop diversification and the need to highlight emerging technologies to provide opportunities for crop diversification. So you can understand a similar question can also be put up in front of you in mains exam on the importance of technology in order to provide advisory services to farmers. Now, this district agro-meteorology units, which was established by Indian Council of Agricultural Research in collaboration with Indian Meteorological Department, uh, these units they were staffed by experts who were both agricultural as well as weather experts. Now, these experts they utilize data or weather related data which was provided to them by the Indian Meteorological Department. That was data related to rainfall, precipitation, drought, wind speed, moisture levels. And utilizing this data, the experts, they were able to provide guidance to farmers on what kind of agricultural practices they should undertake. And these or advisories, they were even provided to the farmers in their local languages through SMS alerts as well as WhatsApp messages. So this local language advisories not just enable farmers to undertake better agricultural practices, but it also enabled them to know what is best or what best options are there for their crops. Further, these advisories were also related to providing early warnings in case of any impending disaster, which will provide farmers with increased resilience for their very crops. So these were the benefits of such district agro-meteorology units. However, due to certain reasons, Niti Aayog recommended that these district agro-meteorology units or DMU should be closed. And rather, these district units, which was established by the government and they provided free of cost advisories, they were replaced by private sector alternatives. However, as today's article highlights, there are also certain issues with these private sector alternatives because, first of all, there are very few in numbers, which is not enough to undertake or to cover the entire geographic divergence or disparity of the country. That is why there are absence of adequate alternatives even today. Further, you can understand the private sector will not provide advisory services free of cost. And in this regard, the affordability of advisory services, especially for small and medium farmers, also becomes a question. Because in many cases, these private sector units who were providing advisories, they were providing advisories at basis of rupees 10,000 per unit crop. And this can even extend to as much as 60 to 80,000 rupees per crop, which is you can understand is a substantial amount for a small and medium farm. Further, the advisory services that were given by these private sector alternatives, they also suffered from potential biases because they were recommending only a fertilizer or pesticide from a certain brand. So, in this regard, today's article highlights that there is very much need for the government to re-establish these TMUs to provide timely, free of cost, and proper guidance to the farmers of our country. Now, we move to another article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Indian Express newspaper. And this article highlights that the critically endangered species of elongated tortoise, it has been found in the Aravalli area. Now, this news article becomes important from prelims point of view because you can see question highlights general issues on environmental ecology and biodiversity, and questions have been also appearing in the prelims examination based on protected and endangered species also. So in this regard, let us understand key facts related to elongated tortoise. Now, this tortoise is also known as sal forest tortoise, which inhabits various kind of forest areas such as open deciduous forest patches, evergreen forest habitats, dry thorn forest, and savanna grasslands. Now, these kind of tortoise are not just found in India, but also in another countries such as Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, and other Southeast Asian countries. Particularly in and around areas, they are to be found in Manas Bhutan transboundary landscape, Corbett Rajaji Nepal Tarai landscape, northeastern Myanmar as well as northeastern Bangladesh, as well as a isolated population also inhabits the Chota Nagpur region, which is located in Odisha. So you can understand, even today, over 90% of the habitat of this elongated tortoise, they fall outside protected area. That is why, because of their endangered criteria, they have been categorized as a critically endangered species in the IUCN Red List. Also, they have been categorized under Appendix 2nd of the CITES mission. So, you can understand this is perhaps the only tortoise species in the Indian subcontinent that inhabit a wide geographical distributed area. However, they are even sparsely located or rare even in that area. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question with reference to elongated tortoise. Consider the following statements. It is a critically endangered species, correct? As I've highlighted here. The second statement, this species is endemic to India only, which you can understand is incorrect because they are endemic to many countries in Himalayan region as well as Southeast Asia. The third statement, it is found in Aravalli as well as in East Coast deltas, which is correct because East Coast delta I've highlighted here, as well as Aravalli, which is a subject of this news article. So, as statement 1 and 3 were correct, that's why the correct answer to this question is option C. Now let us move to the last article of the day, which is Mpox. I know this article has been covered recently, but because there is new information in today's article, that is why I am again or again covering this very topic. Now this news article highlights that case of clade 2 was confirmed in India, and the vaccines also for this particular virus has been made available in the areas of Congo. Now, important diseases which plague most of the areas of the globe are important from UPSC syllabus because syllabus highlights general science, and also questions related to various viral diseases have been asked by UPSC before. So, in this regard, the Mpox, it is a key disease because it even today there are more than 1 lakh confirmed cases and also more than 229 confirmed lab deaths. Also, this kind of disease was prevalent primarily in African nation. However, due to increased globalization, this disease are being transmitted and moving out to other locations as well. Case in point, India, which confirmed its first case, which was a travel related case. Now, in this regard, let us understand the facts about this Mpox disease, which is a viral zoonotic disease because the origin of this disease belongs from animal and it is caused by Mpox virus, which is a DNA virus. Now, the first human case of this disease was found back in the year 1970, that is in the country of Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, like other viruses, also this Mpox virus also has variants that are two variants. First is clade 1, which is related to higher mortality rates, that is up to 10%, and it is primarily found in Congo Basin. Now, this variant is primarily transmitted from animals to humans. However, one subvariant of this disease is also can be transmitted sexually. Now, the second variant, which has been found in India, is associated with lower mortality rates. However, this subvariant demonstrates a increased potential of human to human transition transmission. Now, primarily, this disease is a zoonotic disease which involves transmission from animals to humans. However, with increased variants such as clade second, there are also instances of human to human transmission through contact of bodily fluids and respiratory droplets. Now, the treatment of this disease are self-limiting that people get treated automatically without the need for medical intervention. However, mortality rate of this disease is can extend to up to 10%. Now, the vaccines for this disease were made available quite quickly because the Mpox virus, it belongs to a family of virus called orthopox virus, which also is responsible for other diseases such as smallpox, cowpox, and vaccinia virus. Now, because there are existing vaccines for these kind of disease, and as Mpox belong to the same family of virus, that is through a process of cross reactivity, we can also utilize vaccines which are originally made for these viruses. They can also be provided quite effective for the Mpox virus. And hence, you can understand three Mpox vaccines are available correctly, which all utilized weakened virus strains of vaccinia, which also provides the basis for smallpox vaccine. Understood. So based on this information, let us now quickly solve the practice question. Consider the following statements with reference to Mpox virus. The Mpox virus is an RNA virus belonging to genus of virus causing smallpox. Although it belongs to a genus of virus causing smallpox or cowpox, however, it is a DNA virus and not an RNA virus. So, first statement is incorrect. Moving to second statement, smallpox vaccines can be used to fight Mpox infection, which is correct because through a process of cross reactivity, we can utilize the existing vaccines for these diseases to be used for Mpox diseases as well. Also, the fatality rate of Mpox is almost over 90%, which is again incorrect because the mortality rate of this disease is almost 1 to 10%, which is low, not 90%. So as first and third statement was correct and only second was correct, hence option A is the right answer to this practice question. And with this, we end our today's session of Daily News Simplified. We'll see you again tomorrow at 6. And until then, I bid you a very good night.